This is the Patriots Drive Podcast.
We are all Patriots.
Where we discuss, analyze, and answer questions to all things happening in the NFL and with our New England Patriots. Now, here's your host, Cole Kelly.
Welcome into another edition of the Patriots Draft Podcast. Today is going to be a little bit of a different one. Our first NFL mock draft of the year. It's going to be fun. Something we haven't done before. So I'm excited to be doing a bunch of these before the actual draft starts. So this will be the first one. I'm sure it'll change a lot by the time the week before the draft comes around. We'll have more information on these prospects, whether it's a combine or pro days or all that stuff. But this should be a fun one. I'm here with my co-host Chase Campbell. How's it going, Chase?
It's good. I'm excited. Mock drafts are always fun, and we've been talking about one, and we're finally doing one. So I'm excited to do it. I'm going to take the odd picks. Cole's going to take the even picks. We'll both collaborate on the Patriots one, obviously, and that will be the bulk of the episode once we get to that pick, discussing all the options and everything. But that's kind of how it's going to work. So I'm excited to do this thing.
Yeah, for sure. You got the thing all pulled up.
I'm going to set it up right now.
All right.
And then I will share my screen. So we're doing this. I just found this one out. Found out about this mock. You're going to have to read the chat to me if something comes up, because I'm not going to be able to see the chat.
All right.
But this one is pretty legit. We have our big board here. We have who will be on the clock once we start it, and there will be an actual animation that can come up and do what we who we pick, and we can kind of see everything. So we are picking for every team. I'm taking
no
odds,
trades,
Cole's taking
like
evens.
that.
Yeah, no trades yet. This is we don't want to kill the viewers right now, and I'm honestly not ready to think about trades right now. Free agency is going to determine a lot of that stuff. So
we got our first comment, Mr. Gabe. Maybe consider a trade up for Desmond Ridder. There we go.
Gabe wanted to take Desmond Ridder in the mock we did on just Instagram Live. He wanted to take Ridder at like 21. I'm like, dude, come on, Gabe.
What a troll. Come on, Gabe.
Yeah, he's trolling. He's trolling. So, no. Well, let's get right into this. I'm going to start it. So that puts Jacksonville on the clock. No time limit, so we can talk this out. But for me right here, Jacksonville, they need a culture changer here. Kayvon Thibodeau was a clear-cut number one pick early in the draft, and I think that everyone looked at him and like, how do you not want that guy? A little bit of an underwhelming season even before he got hurt. Aiden Hutchinson's a guy that I think out of Michigan that comes in, he changes the culture right away in that place. He's got a chip on his shoulder. He played great for Michigan this year, led him back to kind of prominence, if you want to call it, and to the college football playoff for the first time. So for the first pick here, I'm going to go with Aiden Hutchinson to the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah, and I think that pick is interesting. You see in a lot of different mocks, it's usually between Hutchinson or maybe Neal, one of the top tackles. I think it's an interesting debate. One that's maybe worth having is, do you get that guy who's probably the best player in this draft, Hutchinson, who's just a monster and he had a great year at Michigan, or do you get a guy at offensive tackle and protect your quarterback? I mean, we saw in the Super Bowl, if Burrow had a decent offensive line, they probably win that game, and that could be the difference. So it's good to protect these young guys. I think that's part of the reason Mac had so much success this year is, I mean, the offensive line was pretty solid. His weapons weren't as good, but you can always improve that, and getting a solid offensive line in front of your quarterback is always a good thing, especially young. But that Jags team needs so much help on both sides of the ball. I think their defense is solid. It has some that's not great, but they held the Bills to like 9 points or 6 points at some point during this year. They got some talented players, Josh Allen and Miles Jack, all those guys. So they got some talent on the defense side of the ball, but I think that's a home run pick as well. Hutchinson, you can't really go wrong there. He's top prospect in this draft, and they're going to be adding a playmaker for sure there. And up at number 2, guy who's not far behind him, I'm going to go with Kayvon Thibodeau, guy who you just explained was the clear-cut number 1 pick early on in this process. He had a great season. He's just explosive. The guy just knows how to get to the quarterback and impact the offensive side of the ball. So I think he'd be a great pick for the Detroit Lions there at number 2.
Yeah, I mean, he was a clear-cut number 1 pick, and I think that he still is going to be in consideration for that number 1 pick. But They're coming out with a little bit of concern pre-draft process that, maybe he doesn't love the game as much as an Aiden Hutchinson. And he's kind of responded to some of that criticism on some of his social medias and replied to that and, kind of shot it down. But if there's red flags being pulled up, I'm sure teams are going to do their due diligence. So I love the Kayvon Thibodeau pick. You look at a typical, successful pass rusher, superstar pass rusher in the league, it's Kayvon Thibodeau. So I love that pick there for Detroit. They got a lot of positions, like you mentioned, and they have a lot of picks, in the first couple rounds that hopefully they can fill the needs there. I see a chat. I pulled up the chat on my iPad so I can see it here. Titans fan said Titans need to trade up for Corral because Tannehill's buns. I don't disagree with that. I want you to comment, though, if you're still in here, what you'd give up to trade up, because Matt Corral could still be there. He didn't compete in the Senior Bowl. He might not do much at the Combine because of his injury. So I'm interested to know what you would trade up to get him if you have to. But let's move on. Pick number 3 here. On to Houston. They got a lot of needs, too. They really found a quarterback gem kind of in Davis Mills. I don't think they reached for a quarterback here. They have a new head coach. They got a lot of needs. They need an edge rusher. If one of those top 2 edge rushers were to fall for them, that would be incredible. But for me, I'm going to go with Derek Stingley. They need to shut guys down on the defensive side. They gave up way too many points. They didn't score enough. But I think that Derek Stingley, he had a little bit of a down year this year for LSU, kind of on an island and not being able to guard as well as he did in 2019. But I still think that all the potential's there. You get him in the right system, and you can develop him. He's a very, very good cornerback to come off the board in the top 5 here. I think that he fits all the traits that you need to have. So I'm going to have them getting better on the outside, trying to shut down some of those receivers in the division and especially in the AFC, and going with a cornerback.
Yeah, I mean, they're in the division with guys like AJ Brown, Julio Jones right now. I mean, Pittman is a solid receiver as well. So I mean, you can't really go wrong with any pick there. They really need everything right now. That team, maybe they found something in Mills. They got, Brandon Cooks. They got some guys on the offense side of the ball, but they're pretty limited at all positions. That defense is pretty bad. So getting a guy who can impact the game like that and maybe try to shut down for the most part somebody's number 1 receiver would be great. And Stingley, if he plays anything like he did his first year and when he showed how much talent he had, that could be a home run pick right there. And coming in at number 4, I'm going to go with Kyle Hamilton, safety for the New York Jets. I just think adding a hybrid safety back to that defense, you saw what kind of a guy like Jamal Adams did for that defense. He was an impact player, and they need somebody like that has all the talent in the world, can fly around and make plays in the back end of the defense. So their secondary kind of struggled this past season. They have question marks of who's going to be back and who's not. Maybe they'll trade a guy. So it'll be interesting to see, but I think he'd be a good fit in New York.
Sorry, who'd you guys read in the chat?
Kyle Hamilton.
Kyle Hamilton. Perfect. Yeah, I was going to say right here, Kyle Hamilton, when you look at the Jets, there's 2 picks for me that makes sense here. If this is how the draft board falls, Kyle Hamilton, obviously being one, he might be the best pure raw athlete in this draft class. That's a home run pick. It sucks that he has to come to the AFC East in this thing. The other one would be Evan Neal with the Moses Morgan type of situation they're having, and Mekhi Becton hasn't been able to stay healthy. Evan Neal is a guy that I can't believe is even here for the Giants at 5. And that's who I'm going to go with, is Evan Neal at 5 to protect whoever they put back at quarterback, whether it's Daniel Jones, whether they try to trade for someone or find a new guy in the draft, whether it's at 7 or another pick. But Evan Neal is another guy that's once in a generational talent. You talk about Penei Sewell last year. Evan Neal's right up there. Like, this guy is going to be a stud for Alabama, or he was a stud for Alabama. He's going to be a stud in the NFL. And I think New York is ecstatic getting him at number 5.
Yeah, let's touch on a couple comments here real quick. Gabe said I could see Evan Neal sliding to 5, and then he said, so already we have Evan Neal sliding out of the top 5, which changes everything for the next few picks, which it's crazy because this draft, depending on who that first pick is, this draft could go so many different ways. If Evan Neal or Ikem Mukwanu goes number 1 overall, that changes everything. And you could have the 2 top tackles off the board by pick 4 if one of them goes first overall. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. But I agree with you. I think having Neal there for the Giants and protecting whoever they have back there, he's a great dominant offensive tackle, and they need help for sure protecting Daniel Jones and also helping Saquon Barkley out a little bit. He's a super talented running back. He's just been in a terrible situation, and If he can stay healthy and continue to be the athlete he is and create plays, I think that would help the offense a lot. It's just protecting your quarterback. We see it so much. When you don't have any protection for your quarterback, it's your offense is not going to be a great spot. And then we have a comment here from the Titans fan. They would trade Tannehill, our first round pick, our first next year, Rashad Evans, and a second round pick to trade up. I'm not sure what spot.
Yeah, obviously that trade right there depends on how far you're moving up. I don't know how far you're going to have to move up for Matt Corral now. That could change on draft day. You know, if you start getting quarterbacks flying off the board in the top 10, top 15, and he's still up there, yeah, you probably have to strike a deal and get up there earlier than what Tennessee's drafting at. But that seems like kind of a steep price. You know, I know there's a lot of teams that, or a lot of Titans fans that are saying, hey, without Ryan Tannehill, we are probably a Super Bowl contender. And I almost wonder if you don't put that package together and try to go after one of the quarterbacks that's already established in the league that might want out, a Russell Wilson, if Deshaun Watson can play, something like that. So I think that there's a lot of ways that Tennessee can go if that's what they're willing to give up for a quarterback. I don't know if you'd want to go with a rookie quarterback, because I really this might be the worst quarterback class in the last 4 or 5 years. It's really that bad in my opinion. So
I do agree with the thought process though of Tannehill is, I mean, Tannehill's the one piece holding them back. He's a pretty decent quarterback when Derrick Henry's back there carrying him, but when he doesn't have a run game to backpack him and rely on the play action with AJ Brown and Julio and guys like that, he's just not the same guy, and he just makes too many losing plays, especially in crunch time and playoff games, all that stuff. He's not the guy you want at quarterback. I don't think Tannehill is a quarterback who could take you to a Super Bowl unless he has tremendous pieces around him, which he does right now. He has some good pieces around him, but it requires everybody to stay healthy and for you to put the game heavily on Derrick Henry's shoulders, AJ Brown's shoulders, whoever, and just hope that Tannehill doesn't make any mistakes. And we just didn't see that this year. We haven't seen that in the past couple of years. He just hasn't been the guy. He's not that great of a quarterback. He's pretty average, in my opinion. You can plug Jimmy G in there, and he's going to do similar things that Ryan Tannehill does. Probably, maybe not as well, but I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo is the same kind of guy. He can get carried by the team around him, and in the NFC Championship against the Packers a couple of years ago, he had like 9 passes or something ridiculous. I think Tannehill's a guy like that. I mean, he can make the throws when his run game is in place and basically opening up things in the passing game for him. But if any of the game has to rely on Tannehill's shoulders, I don't have confidence if I was a Titans fan. So I agree. I think if they're kind of in a win now mode, especially the money they're paying him, his cap hit this upcoming year is like $40 million. That's ridiculous for Ryan Tannehill talent. So I see how Titans fans would clearly want him out of there. I personally, if I was a Titans fan, would want, like you said, to go trade for one of those established quarterbacks, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, guys like that. That's who I'd want as a Titans fan, because if you get one of those guys, you get Aaron Rodgers, that offense is going to be at another level, and I think that'd be great. Aaron Rodgers hasn't had much postseason success either, so maybe that's not the guy you want for the postseason, but maybe Russell Wilson or whoever. You know what I mean? It's just this rookie class isn't great, but if there's a guy that they feel confident about taking a swing at, maybe you draft him, maybe you keep Tannehill and have him develop for a year and then see where it goes. But I don't think getting rid of Tannehill and drafting a rookie would be the right solution, because you're kind of in a win now mode. You got Julio Jones. He's aging. He's not getting any younger. So that's kind of my thought on that. I know we just did like 5 minutes on the Titans, but
well, and the last thing I'll say on the Titans, and then you can pick for the Panthers. But Pat's Rain, what's up? How you doing? Or Pat's Region, what's up? How you doing? I was gonna say, like you said, you're in a win now mode with Tannehill, but we saw firsthand as Patriots fans like what it's like without Derrick Henry and AJ Brown. Like without those two, and it's solely on Ryan Tannehill, it's hard for him to win. Now, it's hard for a lot of quarterbacks to win without talent, like those two players, but they do have the best running back in the league when healthy, and maybe one of the most dynamic pass catchers when you're talking about breaking tackles, 50-50 balls, deep threat in AJ Brown. And you put those two together with a quarterback that can make the big time plays and make the big time throws, that's a scary team, and they already got the 1 seed this year. So I agree with that.
Yeah, for sure. Panthers, I'm going to go with Ike Mukwanu. They need some offensive line help. I don't know. Maybe you protect Sam Darnold a little better, and maybe Christian McCaffrey keeps doing his thing. It's kind of tough. They're kind of set on the defensive side of the ball. They got some weapons on the offensive side. They got DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, Christian McCaffrey. They got guys there. They just don't really have a quarterback that can really help them out. I don't think this year is going to be the year that you're going to take that shot either. Maybe it is. Maybe they fall in love with the quarterback here. Maybe they fall in love with some of the talent of some of these guys, maybe Malik Willis or one of those guys. I think offensive line, I think getting a tackle here who's possibly, still in contention for the number 1 overall pick. I think if he falls to this spot, you're not mad about it. You got another tackle to beef up that offensive line and try to protect Sam Darnold and hopefully he has a little more success this upcoming season. Or a quarterback you trade for, Deshaun Watson, whoever it may be. Because if you improve that offensive line, you get Deshaun Watson, that team's looking a lot better.
Yeah, 100%. You got to protect a quarterback, whoever you put back there. Same with Christian McCaffrey. You've had a lot of hits on him, and he hasn't been healthy the last couple of years. So, maybe thinking of a different way to protect him. Obviously, I think they need to stop giving him so many touches, which is hard because he's such a good talent. But you got to protect him a little, get him some protection up front. I like the pick there. Ikwamu is a great offensive tackle. Here for the Giants again, back on the clock. Went offense in the first round. Offensive line, Evan Neal falls there with their first pick. I'm really tempted to go Tyler Linderbaum here. I really think that they need a good interior defensive lineman, but I think that they're going to address the defensive line position here with George Karlaftis out of Purdue, the edge rusher. They were bottom third of the league in sacks this year. Didn't create much pass rush at all. They're kind of a team that they have a lot of needs. And it would be hard for me to see them doubling down on offensive line at 5 and at 7, especially after they took Andrew Thomas out of Georgia a couple years ago with the 4th pick. So I just don't see them doing that. I think they get better at a different position on the defensive line, and they can, generate a little pass rush, get to quarterbacks. And George Karlaftis can do that. He's a big physical defensive end.
Yeah, I like that pick. I think he'll certainly help out that defensive line a little bit. This one's a little bit of a toss-up for me as well. I'm thinking maybe Linderbaum. I'm thinking about maybe a receiver. Calvin Ridley's in question of what he's going to do. 8 feels a little early for maybe any of these guys. Maybe you could talk yourself into a guy like Jameson Williams if he didn't tear his ACL, if he was healthy. A guy like Garrett Wilson has a ton of talent. This is tough. I guess I'm going to go with Tyler Linderbaum, a center. You don't usually see him go this high, but they need some interior offensive line help. He can play center, maybe a little guard too. He's probably the best center prospect in quite some time. So I think getting him, shoring up that interior offensive line, maybe helps him out. Maybe they can get a receiver in free agency or in a trade with sending Calvin Ridley off somewhere. Maybe they trade back up in the draft. Maybe they get a guy round 2, something like that. I feel like it's a little bit early for any of the guys on the board right here. So I'm going to go with Linderbaum.
Yeah. And we saw, with Creed Humphrey this year for the Chiefs, how good it is. And Linderbaum is a better prospect than what Creed Humphrey is coming out. And you saw how great he was this year. He's already arguably a top 5, maybe a top 3 center in the league, making second team all pro his rookie year. So I think that that's a good pick there, protecting Matt Ryan, if that's who they decide to stick with, getting him guys where he can, finish out his career as a Falcon, and then they can transition to another quarterback whenever that is. But Denver's on the clock now. I think that they need some edge rushers. They lost Von Miller. Bradley Chubb is in some trade rumors. I think that they will have to give up Bradley Chubb if they want Aaron Rodgers, and then this pick probably won't be there anyways. But when you think of Denver, when they've been their best, it's with 2 great edge rushers, with whether it was DeMarcus Ware and Von Miller, and then a good secondary. They have a good secondary. Pat Surtain was great. Justin Simmons has been good, has been phenomenal in the secondary, and they just gave him the bag at the safety position. So I'm going to go with the other Michigan edge rusher here, David Ajabo. You can see 12 TFLs, 11 of them for sacks this year. He's a super raw prospect, but he has a ton of upside. He's a guy that Bill Belichick would love to take and develop, because he could be an absolute animal in 3 or 4 years once he gets in the right system. And we all know Denver can develop edge rushers very well. So I'm going with David Ajabo here to the Broncos, and letting him develop, learn under Bradley Chubb if he does stay, and make that defense come back to prominence with that edge rush.
Yeah, I agree. I like that pick too. He's certainly a raw prospect, a ton of talent, and if they can sharpen his tools a little bit, you've seen a lot of talented edge guys in Denver, so it seems like a spot maybe they know how to develop well and have some success. So if they can use those talents that he has and sharpen his tools a little bit, I think that'd be a great fit right there in Denver for that defense that has a lot of talent on it. And you got to get to the quarterback. If you can get to Mahomes in that division, get to Herbert now, even maybe Derek Carr, I guess you could say, then that's certainly going to help your chances out of winning that division. So I like that pick. Number 10 here, Jets already got Kyle Hamilton. I'm going to go with them in the secondary again, taking a guy, Ahmad Gardner, who some people have as their first corner coming off the board. He's super talented corner. Cincinnati didn't get targeted a ton this year. When he did, he was pretty locked down. He had a really good year. So I think two very talented prospects, two guys that some people have Hamilton as one of the top 3 prospects. Some people have Sauce Gardner as one of the top 8 prospects. So getting a guy here at 10, getting Hamilton at 4, I think that's 2 really solid picks and great additions to that secondary, especially a guy like Saleh as their head coach, defensive-minded head coach. I think he's going to love having 2 guys like this that he can use on the defense side of the ball. So I think a talented prospect like Gardner being there. Another one maybe you can think about is a guy like Charles Cross adding to that offensive line, but I think Ahmad Gardner is just too good of a prospect to pass up. He's here at 10. I think they're going to take him.
Yeah, and you go 2 picks now and you don't improve that offensive line, but you get 2 phenomenal athletes here in the secondary that can help stop, especially when you're dealing with Josh Allen, even Jalen Waddle and Tua, and then what Mac Jones and the weapons that we're going to hopefully add this offseason. They need to improve that secondary tremendously. So the one I've seen mocked here a lot is Garrett Wilson, or any receiver really. I've seen Drake London. I've seen them getting a little bit more weapons for Zach Wilson and help them out. But we kind of saw with Joe Burrow, you get all these weapons, but in the grand scheme of things, if you don't have time to throw the ball and you're getting sacked, it's very hard to win championships. Now you might make it to a championship, but look at last year with the Chiefs. Look at this year with the Bengals. It's hard to win championships when your quarterback is on his back a lot of the time. So they still have a lot of positions. I'm not saying a receiver would, put the Jets as the AFC's favorites by any means, but
plus if Becton can stay, healthy
exactly
more throughout the year, then maybe you just say, okay, Becton stays a little healthier. A guy like Zach Wilson can move around a little bit, maybe better than, obviously he can move around more than a guy like Joe Burrow. So maybe getting a guy like Gardner, shoring up that defense, and then maybe adding later in the draft. This is a pretty solid tackle draft to where you can find some guys that are pretty solid in the second round, and maybe you start adding there, and you just say, hey, we got 2 elite prospects in the top 10 on the defense side of the ball. Now we can either sign a tackle in free agency or add to that offensive line second round 2, whatever it is, and see how that goes. But a guy like Becton, who's so talented, if he can stay healthy, and that's a big question mark. And maybe they say, hey, Becton isn't healthy. We really need to address this offensive line early. And maybe if one of the guys they really like falls to him, maybe they take Evan Neal over Hamilton, or Ike Mekwonu at number 4 early in the draft as well. So I definitely think they do need to address that offensive line. It's just a matter of which prospects they value higher than the others.
For sure. Well, I'm going to go the first pick in Washington Commanders history is going to be a quarterback. I'm going to go with Malik Willis. He improved his stock, I think, at the Senior Bowl, all of his running ability, a little bit shaky throwing the ball, but I think that you're going to put him with Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, Antonio Gibson. You're going to give him enough weapons to succeed, and he's also a really good threat to run the ball and make plays with his legs. So I'm not high on many quarterbacks, but I think that there's a lot of quarterback needy teams, and I think that this is, a perfect spot for the first one to come off the board in Malik Willis.
Yeah, he certainly showed he has some of the tools. He's an athletic guy who maybe his accuracy and arm strength, or not arm strength, but maybe his accuracy and just his ability to, be a high level NFL quarterback. You don't see a lot of the tools in a lot of these guys. That's why this draft class isn't as good at the quarterback position. But you see a lot of the tools, he has them, and it's just a matter of if he can put them together and figure it out at the NFL level. So I think if you're taking a shot in this draft, then I wouldn't mind a guy like him. You're taking a big swing. You either swing and miss, or maybe you hit a home run and he turns out to be something in this in the NFL. So I like that pick as well. Number 12, the Vikings. This one's a little bit tough. If Sauce Gardner was here, I'd probably take him. They kind of need interior offensive line. I don't necessarily love any of the guys at this spot. Let's see. I'm gonna go. This is a little early probably, but I'm gonna say they could use some cornerback help. their corners really aren't that great. I'm going to go Trent McDuffie out of Washington. I think he's a solid prospect. Shore up that secondary a little bit. They're kind of aging at that spot. They got Pat Pete, but outside of him, they really don't have much talent there. And it depends if Rodgers is back, but that division, you got some talented receivers. We'll see if Allen Robinson stays in that division, Devontae Adams, all that stuff. But if you're trying to compete with those guys, you gotta have a little bit more talented corners. And it's a little early maybe for McDuffie, but I think that's a spot that they certainly should address, and I'm gonna have them doing it here.
Yeah, cornerback's a big need. The other good cornerbacks on the board, Andrew Booth is someone that I've seen mocked there. Kiar Elam, Roger McCreary is going to fall because of his arm length. But yeah, Trent McDuffie, yeah, midget arms, right?
Dinosaur arms, yeah.
Trent McDuffie has been a great cornerback in the Pac-12, and you can argue he doesn't have the best competition up there. Maybe one of the weaker Power 5 conferences in the Pac-12, but he has a ton of talent. He's a little smaller corner at 5'11", but I think that he has good foot speed. He's going to be able to fit in that Viking system. And you're sitting behind Patrick Peterson, you're going against Justin Jefferson every day. How do you not improve? So I like that pick there, addressing the cornerback needs. Cleveland here, I think that their glaring need, in my opinion, is a wide receiver. OBJ wasn't the problem, as you found out. Maybe it is Baker, but they still got to replace him. I'm going to go with Garrett Wilson here. Is this our first receiver off the board? I believe it is.
It is. Yeah.
Our first receiver off the board, going there. They lose Odell Beckham Jr. To the Rams. He ends up having a great second half of the season and playoff before getting hurt, sadly, and then, winning a Super Bowl. But I'm going to have them retooling there. If Baker is the guy and they believe in him, or they're going to give him one more chance, they got to surround him with weapons. So I'm going to go with Garrett Wilson here at 13 for the Browns.
Yeah, I think that's a good pick. Super talented receiver. Seems like a really, really good spot for him to go. Just Cleveland. I mean, they definitely need a receiver. You lost Odell. You traded, or you cut him. You didn't even trade him. You cut Odell. You need another guy. You can't just be Jarvis Landry. You need another guy. They got a great run game, good offensive line. Their defense is really solid. Baker's a question mark, and their weapons. They certainly need some weapons. So I think that's a good pick there. I think that's definitely something I could see them doing. This one's a little bit tough as well for the Ravens. They have a solid team. They just had so many injuries last year that they didn't even make the playoffs, and that's odd. But Lamar was hurt. I mean, their entire defense was hurt. Basically, their offense. They need some defensive line help. Some of the top guys are off the board at this spot, so I don't necessarily love taking any of these guys this early. One guy maybe you can say is a guy like Jordan Davis, but it's tough. I guess I'll go with I will go Jordan Davis. He's a talented guy. They may lose Calais Campbell in the offseason. I'll go a guy like Jordan Davis, add to that defensive line, maybe fill his spot a little bit. Maybe he's more of a interior guy. Obviously, Jordan Davis is, but he's just super talented, home run interior defensive lineman. He maybe didn't play all 3 downs in college at some points, but maybe his game transitions more to the NFL. He's a really talented prospect, and I could see him fitting in well with this Ravens defense.
Yeah, a true nose technique, either playing a 0 or a 1 gap in the defense. And when you look at the division in the AFC North, you got Najee Harris and the Steelers, who are looking to retool that offensive line, and they obviously have to get a quarterback, but right now they're going to be pretty run heavy with Najee. And then you got one of the best offensive lines in Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. So putting a guy like him in the middle of your defense for the Ravens is going to be huge. He's an absolute monster. I just clicked off of his name. I wanted to read his exact. Do you have his exact measurements up? What, he's like 6'5" or something?
He is 6'6", 340, it says.
Freaking massive. And you watch him on film and you know exactly where he is. Yeah. For that size, like the way he moves is ridiculous. So that's a good pick. Put him in the AFC North, and let him do his thing and develop. So that's going to put Philly on the clock at 15, one of 3 picks. I think one of these maybe will get moved for maybe a more established player, but they do have a lot of needs. They've taken receivers the last couple drafts in the first round. I see a lot of spots here. I would have loved for Sauce Gardner to fall to them. I think that he's a good fit, but I'm going to stick with, or I'm going to go with a linebacker here. And I hate to say it because I want New England to take a linebacker. But I think that Devin Lloyd just makes too much sense for them. They need some linebackers. They need a guy that can run around the field and rush the passer, defend tight ends, defend running backs in that division with Ezekiel Elliott, a lot of weapons on the Cowboys. And if Washington takes Malik Willis, they need a guy that can, kind of spell him. So I'm going to go with Devin Lloyd here. It sucks. I would have loved for him to fall to New England, but when you have Philly in with 3 picks right before New England, and they have a lot of similar needs to them, there's bound to be a pick where they take someone and it just ruins our whole draft.
Yeah, I think that's a good pick. They definitely need a linebacker, and he's a guy who has a lot of talent and he can fly around. He's a more mobile linebacker, can play in that division with guys like Zeke and some of those receivers that they have in the NFC. So I like that pick. He's a super talented guy that need a linebacker. It makes all the sense in the world. And they got the next pick up here, number 16. I'm going to go with Drake London, wide receiver. I know they've addressed the wide receiver position a little bit the past couple of drafts. They haven't really hit on it. I think a guy like Drake London with his size fits well with a guy like Devonta Smith. And I mean, he can be a body in the run game as well, which the Eagles like to run the ball a bit. I just think he's a good contrast to what they have in that offense, and I think he'd be another good weapon for Jalen Hurts. And if you're questioning if Jalen Hurts is a guy, adding that one more weapon, you would have London now along with Devonta Smith. You got solid offensive line and running back. So I think that'd be another good test. Add to that wide receiver core a guy who's a little bit different. He's not redundant. He's a big body receiver who has a lot of talent and size. So I think that's an interesting spot for him to go there to the Eagles. Plus, you got the Chargers and Saints up next, 2 positions where maybe one of them takes a receiver. And if you got a guy you fall in love with and you think Drake London's going to be the guy that's going to fit your offense well, I think they would take him.
Yeah, and the more I watch Drake London, I don't know if he's a good fit for New England. That's why I'm kind of low on him. But the dude's a freak. He played college basketball at USC along with playing college football until his last year when, he's going to be a first-round draft pick in the NFL, so he gives up basketball. But his foot quickness for his size, he actually can create decent separation. I think that's the biggest misconception Patriots fans get is they're like, oh my gosh, a big, tall, physical receiver out of the Pac-12. They want to lump him in with N'Keal Harry. Yeah, he has a lot of similarities to N'Keal Harry. But he's going to run a faster 40. He's going to be more explosive in his jumps. He'll probably broad jump and vertical jump higher if he does test in that stuff. He's going to test freakishly measurement-wise. His hands, his arms, like everything about him is freakishly good talent, and he's shown great things. He played in 53 less games than N'Keal Harry and almost had the same production as him. So I've actually gotten super high on Drake London. I still, like I said, just knowing New England's system and how Josh McDaniels and Bill have ran it, maybe that changes with the new OC. But I think that he's not a good fit in New England. But, he can be a superstar receiver in the NFL, and it's kind of scary to see what his potential is. But that's going to put the Chargers on the clock here. I think that they need defensive line help. Jordan Davis here would have been a no-brainer for me. He would have made so much sense. I don't think that there's really a true edge rusher. The one guy that I look at that really improved his stock at the Senior Bowl is Jermaine Johnson. I still think this might be a little too early, just off of one good Senior Bowl. So I'm going to go with a guy that I've been pretty high on, and he could fall in the draft, but he has all the intangibles to be a good interior defensive lineman. That's DeMarvin Leal from Texas A&M. He, him and Jordan Davis were kind of 1A, 1B for a while there, and then he's kind of fallen off on some prospect or on some draft people's boards. But I still think that he makes a lot of sense here. They need to bulk up that run defense and stop some, teams from running all over them if they want to unlock Justin Herbert's full potential, because he sometimes couldn't even get on the field because the defense just couldn't get off the field. So I think adding a guy like DeMarvin Leal on the interior for them makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I agree. They definitely need defensive interior help. I mean, their run defense was horrendous this year, and if a guy like Jordan Davis fell to them, I think that'd be the perfect spot to take a guy like that. They currently have Mike Williams as a question mark. Maybe he comes back, maybe he doesn't. So that's a spot that maybe they say, okay, if we don't like anybody in the interior of the defensive line, maybe we go with a receiver there if Mike Williams doesn't end up coming back. They got Keenan Allen currently, but that can never hurt, especially in that division where you need to put up points. But stopping the run game is a huge thing. Their run defense was horrendous, so I think that's a good spot to take that position. So next up is the Saints. This one's I hate to do this because I really want this guy to fall to us. I really do. But the way the board fell, this isn't how it's going to go. So I'm going to have the Saints taking Chris Olave at number 18. I just think very talented receiver, great route runner, great separator. I wanted to be there at 21, but the Saints need a receiver, especially with question marks. Michael Thomas, I think he has one more year on his deal, something like that. Quarterback is a question mark, but they need weapons. When Michael Thomas was out this year, they had even worse receiving options than we did, and that's certainly saying something. So I think they take Chris Olave here at 18 with Garrett Wilson off the board. They got a couple different guys who are interesting fits, but Chris Olave he's a really talented receiver. I'm really high on him, so I'm going to have him going here at 18.
Yeah, that sucks. I think that he would have been awesome in New England, but it makes a lot of sense there with how far over the cap they are and the question marks that they have with Michael Thomas, if he's even going to play or if he's going to request a trade. So that puts the Eagles back on the clock, their third pick. The two guys that I'm really going back and forth with is getting a secondary guy, Andrew Booth or Kiar Elam, one of the cornerbacks, or addressing an edge rusher, which I think that they need. And that's Jermaine Johnson, who had a stellar Senior Bowl. And I think that I'm going to kind of reach here. I'm going to go with Jermaine Johnson. I think that he showed enough that he squeaked into the first round. And when you have 3 first-round picks right here, I think that they're going to take a chance on a guy. They already got Devin Lloyd, we all know he's going to be a pretty immediate impact unless something tragic happens, and Drake London has all the potential to be. So I'm going to go with them reaching for one of their or their last of their first round picks, but Jermaine Johnson showed all the tools to be an elite pass rusher in the NFL. So I'm going to put him on the edge, and that's their 3 first round picks for the Eagles.
Yeah, that's so many first round picks, but they can certainly fill a lot of holes there in this one draft. I think they probably will trade one of those. Maybe they don't want to. Maybe they trade it for a player or something like that. But they got some great options on the board, and I think that fills a need for sure. So next up at number 20, Pittsburgh Steelers. They need a quarterback. I think they go with Kenny Pickett, the guy from Pittsburgh. So makes too much sense. Super talented guy, a lot of potential. He had a really solid season. Obviously, was in Heisman contention, and he's just a great quarterback from the Pittsburgh area. I think Steelers fans are going to love that part about him. So I'm going to go with Pickett here to Pittsburgh.
Yeah, Mr. Fake Slide and all. I think that they're super high on Malik Willis. Obviously, he's out at this point, and they still go get a quarterback. And like you said, it makes too much sense. Out of Pittsburgh, University of Pittsburgh, they play at Heinz Field, and he gets to stay home and hopefully make an impact for him at 20. And I don't love Kenny Pickett, but we've talked about this. Like any of these quarterbacks, in my opinion, any of them, there's not a clear-cut number one. Kenny Pickett could be the best in the draft in the class. He could be the worst. Same with Sam Howell. Same with Desmond Ridder. Like I think this quarterback class is just open to someone to come take it. So Kenny Pickett could be the right pick here. He had a great senior year. I kind of compare him to Zach Wilson, where maybe he struggled a little bit his first couple of years or didn't have quite the numbers, and then he jumps on the scene and he's probably going to be a first-round quarterback. So we'll see how that pans out for Pittsburgh. The problem is they have a lot more other needs on that team, especially with the offensive line, that you're not really setting him up to succeed right off the bat. But that's going to put New England on the clock, and we have a lot of options to do here. If we look at the best available, we have cornerback, we have the linebacker, who I just watched more film on him the other day, and I think I love him even more now. The only thing that concerns me is he's too small. I just don't see Bill drafting him because of his size.
I don't either.
Everything else about him, he's phenomenal. He plays the game fast. He's instinctive. He hits you. He does everything so well. I think that he's too small for a Bill Belichick type of linebacker. If we want to address the cornerback position, you have Andrew Booth, Kiar Elam. There's plenty of receivers here with Treylon Burks or Jameson Williams. And then if we want to protect Mac Jones a little more with Trent Brown or Isaiah Wynn being a question mark, there's obviously Charles Cross is, arguably a top 10 talent in my opinion.
That's what I was. Yeah, I was just gonna say Cross is still on the board. I think if he's still there, that's somebody they certainly look at with the question marks at offensive tackle. Trent Brown, free agent. Isaiah Wynn, terrible year. He's on his 5th-year option. I hope they move him this year for a pick, for a wide receiver, whatever it ends up being. Get him out of here. fill the position in the draft or elsewhere, or even just in house, re-sign Trent Brown and move Michael Wendo to right tackle, like he played so good at the beginning of the year. So I think Charles Cross would be a great pick. Nakobe Dean, like you touched on, he's just too small. He's smaller than Kyle Duggar. I don't think Belichick's going to want to take a guy like that. I really don't. Um, another guy, Andrew Booth Jr. I think if he's here, I would absolutely love for us to take him. Super talented guy, ball hawk a little bit. Another guy kind of similar to J.C. Jackson. If you get J.C. Jackson back and add Andrew Booth Jr. to the secondary, you got J.C. Andrew Booth along with Jonathan Jones, and then having that would kind of move Jalen Mills to more of a depth guy or the fourth corner, and he could also play some safety. You could use him more as the chess piece that he is, and I think that'd be really great for this defense. So I would love Andrew Booth. Another guy I've started to look into a little bit more and have gotten a little bit higher on is Treylon Burks. He's just, I mean, he's getting some comparisons to a guy like AJ Brown. He's maybe not the most refined route runner, but he's got all the tools and talent. Speedy, big guy, kind of an athletic freak who can create some separation, 50-50 balls, all that stuff. I like him a lot more than a guy like Drake London, excuse me, for the Patriots. I think he'd be a good fit as well. So there's a lot of really good options here. If a guy like Jordan Davis fell here also, or a guy like Chris Olave, I would absolutely love to be on the Patriots. I think he's perfect for this system. Maybe this is a spot they trade back as well if they don't like any of these prospects. If the right prospect doesn't follow them, I think this is a prime trade down spot. Get another second round pick. Take Mechie and one of the linebackers, Muma, or one of the guys we talked about in the Senior Bowl episode, which you can check out. That video's out. So there's a lot of options here. I think this is a prime spot to trade down, but there's so many talented guys right here that I would love for the Patriots to pick.
Yeah, I think that looking at the board right now, this would be a situation Bill trades down in. Just my personal opinion. You could probably trade down to the later half of the first round. Maybe Detroit feels like they need to jump up and get a first round quarterback, and they don't feel like he would be there at 32 where they're drafting in place of the Rams. You can trade down, get one at the back half, and then maybe pick up an extra 5th round pick or something too, which we all know. If you look in the top right, we only have a 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and a 6th round pick. We're pretty low on these later round picks, which New England usually gets comp picks for, or they have stashed those and they're not going to be getting. So I think this is a prime trade down candidate. Obviously, we're not doing trade downs. So for me, my favorite ones are who I talked about for the Eagles also. Andrew Booth or Kiar Elam, both of them talented cornerbacks. Kiar Elam's got a little bit more size at 6'2". If I'm going to take a receiver here, I'd probably want to go with Jameson Williams over Treylon Burks. The more I watch and read about Treylon Burks, the more concerned I get about his fit in the NFL because he was mostly a slot receiver at Arkansas. I don't see him being a slot receiver in the NFL at 6'3". And if you put him in New England's system, I feel like, are you going to play him over Kendrick Bourne or Jacoby Myers or someone in the slot that maybe is a little bit more used to playing that at an NFL level? I feel like we would need an outside threat more. Jameson Williams fits good for me. I'd love Treylon Burks. I'm not saying I wouldn't take him here. I just probably would be a little bit lower on him. So for me, it's probably addressing the cornerback position. I'd love to take Nakobe Dean. I literally don't think that it's a possibility with his size. And it sucks because he is a very, very good once in a lifetime linebacker, in my opinion, but his size is going to hurt him.
Yeah, for sure. And a guy like Treylon Burks, I don't know. I think he's got the tools. I think maybe in the Patriot system, especially with their struggles developing receivers, he's not, like I mentioned, he's not the most refined route runner yet. He's got the physical talent, and maybe in New England isn't the best spot for him development wise. But I do think somewhere, if he finds the right home in the NFL, I think he could be a really talented guy. I mean, he's got the physical tools. If somebody can develop him, I think he still could be a really talented receiver. It's kind of a question where he'll play in the slot or outside. If he's obviously more comfortable in the slot from playing there, but you never know, guys. I mean, Julian Edelman was a quarterback in college and transitioned pretty well into the NFL. So you never know with certain guys. Maybe his best spot is on the outside, and they find that out in the NFL, and he's even better. But you really never know. I think he's a talented guy, but for me right here, if this is the board, I think the Patriots' best option is Andrew Booth Jr. Right next to that is Charles Cross. If he somehow falls here, I don't think he's going to be available here, but I think if a guy like that fell, that would be worth them staying at this pick and taking Charles Cross. But I think a more realistic pick is a guy like Andrew Booth Jr. If he's still here, home run pick for sure.
Yeah, I agree. Let's take Andrew Booth Jr. I love Andrew Booth Jr. I love Kiar Elam both. I'd probably favor Elam a little bit more just because of his size, but I think that Andrew Booth is a home run pick here at 21. I don't think you can go wrong with either. Just if you're playing the game, who would you rather have? I'd maybe want to take a bigger corner that could play opposite of JC Jackson if we sign him extended. And then, like you mentioned, move Jalen Mills, hopefully to safety, depending on what happens with McCourty. And then have Jonathan Jones in the slot. I'd feel super comfortable with a secondary looking like that. So I love the pick of Andrew Booth here at 21. I think that it's a good fit here at corner, especially with the uncertainties. So that's awesome, Ben. That's going to put you back on the clock at 22 with our favorite team right now, taking all of our coaches.
Taking all our coaches and taking one of our prospects that looks pretty good from Alabama. I'm going to have them taking Jameson Williams. They need wide receiver help. I think Nakobe Dean would be an interesting pick here too. They need linebacker help as well, but I think they need receiver more. They don't have a ton of help there. They kind of got unlucky with some stuff off the field issues with one of their wide receivers. So I think this Jameson Williams is a good replacement for him. Obviously had a tremendous year at Alabama. There's no chance he would be here if he didn't tear his ACL. I think it's too good value for a guy like that, even if he isn't healthy week one. He's just a super talented guy. Adding him with Derek Carr, Darren Waller, it'd be a great pick for them here.
Yeah, they need help on the outside. The one thing that scares me is if Josh McDaniels didn't use James or wouldn't use a deep threat with Tom Brady or Mac Jones, how's he going to use it with Derek Carr? We'll see. Maybe that's part of the system, and he all of a sudden implements it because he has a little bit more veteran receiver. But Jameson Williams, one of the most explosive receivers coming out of college this year, and coming off an ACL injury is a little scary, but coming out of Alabama, you have faith that he's going to have that figured out. And we all know how Alabama receivers have turned out. So that puts the Cardinals on the clock here at number 23. I'm going to have them going with a corner that we talked about. I'm going to have them going Kiar Elam. There's rumors that they might be in the hunt for a Carlton Davis type of corner, maybe even a JC Jackson if he were to hit free agency. Same with the Raiders. They both need cornerbacks, but I'm going to go with them getting a young cornerback here in Kiar Elam, strengthening that secondary. They took linebacker last year. They have DeAndre Hopkins, Kyler Murray, if he stops being a little, baby about whatever's going on there, or the management figures it out. And they seem to figure out some of their O-line issues last year with Rodney Hudson coming over from the Raiders. So I'm going to have them going with Kiar Elam here, strengthening up that secondary after they lost Pat Pete 2 years ago.
Yeah, I think it's a good pick. That secondary could use some help. We'll see what their defensive line ends up being. Chandler Jones, obviously, and JJ Watt. JJ Watt was hurt most of the year. Is Jones a free agent this year or no, next year?
No, he's a free agent this year.
This year, okay. That's what I thought. So we'll see what happens with him. If he's gone, obviously that position of need moves up the board a little bit, but corner is certainly a position of need, especially that division. Some of the receivers they have there, it's tough to stop some of those guys. So 24, I got the Cowboys taking Nakobe Dean, the linebacker from Georgia. Guy we just talked about. He's a little undersized, but I mean, having Nakobe Dean, Micah Parsons, you got some really talented linebackers there. I know Parsons played more edge. They transitioned him there, and he was just amazing. But that's a lot of speed at that defense, and linebackers a position of need for sure. And I think he'd fit in pretty well there into that defense. Their offense is stacked if they can figure it out, play calling wise and performance wise. Keep adding to that defense, they're gonna be contenders. So I think we'll see if the Cowboys ever can actually make it over the top, but they'll always be in the mix if they have these offensive weapons and they're stacking together talent on this defense like this.
For sure. And it's always the Cowboys year, right?
Yeah, every year
It's their year. So Buffalo on the clock here. I'm glad you took Nakobe Dean. It would have been hard for me to pass up a Nakobe Dean like talent to Buffalo, making that defense a lot better than what it was last year. And they were super good last year. So I'm going to have them protecting Josh Allen a little bit more. They need more interior help than tackle help. So I'm going to have them going with Kenyon Green here out of Texas A&M. I think that he's a good physical offensive tackle or offensive guard that can play. And, they're getting a little bit older there and a little bit shaky on the insides. And you got to keep your franchise quarterback there and Josh Allen healthy. So especially when you got Christian Barmore and Christian Wilkins on your AFC East opponents, and you got to deal with them on the interior. So I'm going to have them taking Kenyon Green here and helping keep him healthy.
I can't believe Charles Cross is still on the board. He's got to go somewhere eventually. But yeah, they need interior help maybe more than tackle help. Obviously, this is tough. It's just he's definitely going to go earlier than this. The spot hasn't been there, I guess, for kind of what we've been looking at. But I got the Titans on the clock at 26. This is a tough one. I think Harold Landry is a free agent. He may be gone, so I'm going to have them going Drake Jackson from USC, filling that position of need. Their other edge guy they got from Pittsburgh was hurt most of the year. They could use some help there at the edge position. So I'm gonna have them getting a pass rusher. And Harold Landry had 12 and a half sacks this past year. So losing him is certainly going to have a hole on that defense side of the ball. So I'm going to have them fill in that need.
For sure. Well, I think that this is the point where I officially have Charles Cross coming off the board. I think the Buccaneers need offensive tackle help. Now, this could be a quarterback spot, but I think that they're going to maybe try to target a Jimmy Garoppolo, a guy like that isn't a top tier quarterback. Maybe they go get a top tier guy, and I'm sure that they will try to target one and stay relevant with Mike Evans and that good defense they have. But I'm going to have them going. Imagine Charles Cross and Tristan Wirfs across from each other. It's going to be great for whoever they put back there, Jimmy Garoppolo or whoever they decide to get. So I'm going to go Charles Cross coming off the board here to the Buccaneers. If Brady hears this pick, he might come out of retirement and play one more year, because that will be an nasty offensive line. And I know that they're losing Ryan Jensen as a free agent, and they have Alex Kappa, their other starting guard, as a free agent. So I know that they have some interior needs, but I think that when you figure out this tackle position, or maybe you move Wirfs or someone inside, this is going to be a good offensive line.
I'm going to continue with the offensive line, the tackle position. Trevor Penning to the Packers. Just a great tackle. Packers need some offensive line help. Maybe you try to say, hey, Rodgers, this is a spot you can either get a weapon or an offensive lineman, and they never seem to get an actual receiver for him. So I'm going to go Trevor Penning just in case Rodgers gets traded. They sure up another tackle spot for whoever's back there, whoever they end up going with. Maybe it's Jordan Love is the future there, but getting an offensive lineman. Trevor Penning was a mauler at the Senior Bowl. He was absolutely insane. I think that's a spot a guy for the Patriots maybe would even look at 21. So him being here at 28, I'm sure the Dolphins would have liked him here at 29 as well, but I'm going to have him going off the board 28 to the Packers.
Yeah, that's a good pick right there. I'm trying to pull up. Obviously, I'm sure Packers fans would want, a Treylon Burks type of guy here, and say that would
Jahan
be
Dotson, Burks.
Yeah, Jahan Dotson. Okay, here we go. So I'm pulling up this stat for Miami because they need a lot of help on the offensive line. They have 3 of their starting offensive tackle or offensive linemen in top 10 of pressures allowed, both their tackles in Liam Eichenberg and Jesse Davis, and then their guard in Austin Jackson. So I think that they need some offensive line help. Looking at the offensive tackle, Nicholas Petit-Fier is a great offensive tackle. But I'm going to go with Bernhard Raymond out of Central Michigan, 6'7", 305 pounds. This guy is an absolute mauler. He can come in and replace one of those tackles that struggled so much this year. And I think that if you had to guess, it would be Jesse Davis. I think Liam Eichenberg has some potential. He's kind of a young guy out of Notre Dame that can still improve. But protecting Tua, letting him get to Jalen Waddle, some of his other threats down the field, Mike Gesicki, is an important thing for them. So I'm going to have them going with that offensive lineman.
I like that there. They certainly need offensive line help. I mean, anywhere you can add anywhere on that offensive line, and it's gonna help that team out. So I think that's a good pick. This one's a little bit tougher. The Chiefs, they need corner help. I don't love any of the spots here. McCreary, like we talked about, his dinosaur arms. That's probably not going to be a great fit round 1. I think he's probably going to fall later than that. They really could use a corner, though. They also could use a wide receiver. I mean, next to Tyree. I know you got Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce as weapons, but and Mecole Hardman and stuff like that. But they could also use a receiver. Which one they go with is kind of more the question for me. I'm gonna have them. I'm gonna have them go with. I'll say Jahan Dotson. Um, I know he's not as big as a guy like Treylon Burks, but just another talented receiver from Penn State. He can do a lot of different things, and I'm sure Mahomes would love another weapon out there next to Tyreek Hill. Having a guy like Jahan Dotson, along with Travis Kelce, those are three really special weapons that you can work with. And I know they'd probably like one of the top corners to fall here. I didn't really love any of them at this spot at 30. Most of the good ones were taken off the board. If a guy like Kaiir Elam falls, that'd be a perfect pick. I'm sure they'd love to have him fall there, but not a ton of great corners fell to that spot that I felt great about them picking there. So I'm gonna go with Dotson.
Yeah, and thinking of them getting another receiver is pretty dang scary.
Yeah.
I don't like the thought of that. I don't know if many people do, but do you have any questions where Cincinnati goes first round receiver?
I'm gonna guess receiver. Probably they need some receiver help. They don't need to protect Joe Burrow at all. So I think they probably take a receiver. Probably the first 3 rounds at least. Yeah,
Yeah,
offensive line anywhere, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and looking at some of the best available, obviously they need some help at a lot of positions on the offensive line. I'm going to go with another Senior Bowl performer that I thought was great. That's Zion Johnson, an interior offensive line here, 6'3", 316. You look at what, and you're going up against probably the best offensive tackle or defensive tackle in NFL history in Aaron Donald, and so it's hard to control him. But they had troubles on the interior containing him, so I'm going to go with Zion Johnson here. A guy that they struggled, interior offensive lineman where they struggled, from the pocket getting pressed on Joe Burrow, and you give him some extra time, it might be a different Super Bowl champion right now. But I think that they need to improve at a lot of positions there, and it's a good start getting an interior guy.
I agree. I mean, you can't go wrong there. You take an offensive lineman, that's it. I mean, any position there, they need help bad. So I feel bad for Burrow, honestly. I mean, a lot of people have been talking about it. If they don't get offensive line help fast for him, he's going to end up like Andrew Luck, and that's not good. He's too talented to have that happen to him. But he's just getting banged up back there. He's got no time, and especially against that D line, good luck. So they held up for the first half pretty well. I was shocked, and then Aaron Donald, once he started getting pissed off, it was over, and that was about it right there. So last pick in the first round, Detroit Lions. They certainly need a lot of different things. I'm gonna have them picking a quarterback. I'm gonna have Matt Corral go here, 32 to the Lions. Why not? Sam Howell's another guy that maybe ends up going here. He obviously had a better year previously than this one, but I'm gonna have Matt Corral going here to the Lions to finish up the first round, having them taking a shot on a quarterback who's got some talent. I know he ran a lot of RPOs and stuff like that. But he's got talent. We'll see how he transitions to the NFL. It's going to be a question. We really didn't have many quarterbacks coming out off the board in this first round, which was a little bit surprising. I'm sure more will go than this. People will reach. It happens every year. So we'll see. But I'm gonna say they need a quarterback. Maybe they let him develop for a year behind their current guy,
Jared Goff.
Jared Goff. Thank you. I don't know why
he's so trash. We forgot about him.
I know. Geez. So I'm gonna have them going there with Matt Corral.
Yeah, I think that's a good pick. They're obviously a quarterback needy team, and Desmond Ridder or Sam Howell, one of those guys. I would probably take Matt Corral over either of them. So I agree. I think that's a good pick. But that's going to wrap up our first round, our first mock draft. We'll look at the results here. I just kind of wanted to look at a couple other positions that we hadn't addressed in the draft that could be addressed if we were to continue to go on. You look at receivers here. I don't think Treylon Burks would fall to us at our next pick, which would be at 53. I think that George Pickens, maybe Mechie would be one I know all Patriots fans would have their eye on. Justin Ross is a guy. And then there's a couple late round, third round, fourth round guys. Wan'Dale Robinson's been rumored here. Yeah. Shakir, I don't know if they have Christian Watson on here. They don't have him on. Yeah, he's right here. He's going to be way higher than 218. They probably haven't updated this yet. So those are some receiver positions. If you want to continue to look at offensive tackle, maybe that's somewhere they go. Petit Fier, Kinnard, these are guys that would intrigue you. Falele is massive at 6'9", 400 pounds. I think he's going to have a couple question marks on his size. And
He had a horrible Senior Bowl, right?
He did. I think the size is so compelling, but they kind of, see the flaws when you're that big. It's hard to move, effectively to guard good guys like that. Moving down, defensive line is another position I think would be awesome to address. Devondre Wyatt, I don't think he'd be there. You scroll down here, Mathis, another Alabama guy. These are the
Travis
two
Jones.
that we both have our eye on. Travis Jones, Perrion Winfrey. The Senior Bowl MVP, Perrion Winfrey, was great. Travis Jones would be an absolute stud in opposite of Christian Barmore to help stop the run. He's more of a true one technique defensive tackle that can spell Barmore and push the pocket from inside and, stop the run. So I think that he would be awesome there. And then the one position that we still haven't addressed, linebacker, which we've talked about a lot, is Christian Harris, Chad Muma, Darian Beavers, Channing Tittle. There's a lot of guys down here that you could target in the second, possibly third round.
Yeah, there's a ton of options. They it's going to be fun to see what they end up doing with it. There we go. Yeah, it's going to be fun to see how they end up addressing it, because depending on who's goes where, I mean, if a guy like Jordan Davis falls to them, maybe they take him round one, or maybe they say, hey, you know what, we're going to take a tackle here or a corner here, and we're going to wait till second, third round to find one of these guys, because there's a lot of guys that I think they're going to think are a better value at round 2 or 3 than maybe a guy like Davis in round 1 at pick 21. We'll see how they value certain people. Maybe they pick a tackle early, corner early, something like that. It really depends how they value these players. And I think there's a lot of good talented linebackers and defensive interior players in rounds 2 and 3 where maybe they don't take one of those in the first round because some of those guys get reached on, or some of those guys aren't big enough, stuff like that. I think the round 2 and 3 are going to be the sweet spot for the Patriots this year, finding some of those guys, the linebackers, interior defensive players that they have their eye on.
Yeah, and there's still a lot of positions. Sorry, I was sharing this so we could look at the full picks. Obviously, New England, we get 21 at Andrew Booth. I think that there's still a lot of good picks here in the second round, like you mentioned, that you can target. And we have picks in the first through fourth rounds. You got to hit on those. And then, you take a break till the 6th. Maybe you make some trade backs. I would almost guarantee some trade backs to get, a couple later round picks and address more positions of need in those later rounds. So I think that this was a good first mock draft, though. Obviously there's a lot of other guys that I would love to have taken. Andrew Booth is a great fit. I think everyone could agree. Chris Olave would fit great. Jordan Davis would be intriguing there. Sauce Gardner, Devin Lloyd, there's a lot of people that could fall to us if, teams start reaching for quarterbacks.
Yeah, and I hope they do. The more quarterbacks that get taken early, the better for us, because we're getting more talented players falling down the board. So I hope 5 quarterbacks are taken in the first round before us. That'd be great. I don't think it happens, but there's teams that could reach. I mean, maybe the Panthers, maybe the Broncos, maybe they take one early. You never know. Then obviously Washington's a spot that a lot of people think they could take one. Then we get to the Steelers. And past that, there's not a lot of quarterback needy teams. Maybe the Packers, for some reason, don't love Jordan Love and they take a shot on another guy. If Rodgers leaves, you never know. So it's going to be really interesting. I'm excited to see how it all shakes out. This is going to change a lot, I'm sure. If we come back and look at this after our final mock draft, and we come back and look at this one, I'm sure it's going to be completely different. I'm sure the top is going to be pretty similar, but there's definitely going to be some prospects that test well at the combine, test poorly at the combine, go up and down our draft board and rankings. And it's always fun to see how this plays out, because you see some guys that fall that you're like, this guy's not going to fall, but I don't know where he's going to go in this mix. There's better fits, it feels like. So for us today, we had a couple of those, but overall, I think we did pretty good. Charles Cross was the one. He fell to 27. He could go in the top 10. So he's probably going to go top 10. That's where he's projected around. So it's fun to see, though. Fun to do this little activity and go over some scenarios where if this person's on the board, Patriots will take this guy or this guy, and just go over the options the Patriots could see coming up on draft night.
Yeah, I love mock drafts, and this won't be, our last one. That's for sure. This is only our first one. We'll be doing a lot more. Like you mentioned, off season's definitely going to change a lot of teams' perspectives. There are going to be trades in the draft on draft day. There's going to be people that address some of these positions that we think are needs now in free agency, and it's going to totally flip their draft strategy. So it's exciting to see the whole draft process starting, to come. The combine is on March 1st to March 7th. So
can't wait.
That's coming up at the end of this month, start of March, and we'll be able to, watch most of these guys that we have our eye on in the first couple rounds perform again if they went to the Senior Bowl or for the first time, measurements, testing, and everything. So that's always something fun to watch, and I'm sure we'll have good coverage on that.
Yeah, that'll just give us more information, and that's always fun to watch. See how these guys test, and it certainly makes you fall in love with certain prospects just seeing their raw speed, their ability, their talent, all that stuff. So that's going to be another piece of information that'll just make these mock drafts better. And we're certainly going to have more of these coming up in the future. I'm sure we'll have 10 to 20 before the actual draft happens. And then probably like the week before the draft or a few days before the draft, we'll have our final one of our predictive mock or what we think will happen, whatever. And hopefully we do well. We'll see how we end up doing on that one. But this is good. That's all for me. You got anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Alrighty. Well, like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. Who you want the Patriots to take at 21, depending on who's on the board. So we're going to have a video coming out later in the week of breaking down some of those prospects. So stay tuned for that. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. But thank you guys for tuning in today, and we will see you guys next time.
Thanks for listening to this edition of the Patriots Drive podcast. Follow us on social media to stay up to date with all things New England Patriots. Make sure you tune in to the next episode and check out patriotsdrive.com for more great content.
We're on to Cincinnati.